What do you make of the Lakers, man? I mean, that where it's not Christmas time yet. There's still much time to go. But, I mean, now we've got, what is it now, 26, 27 games or 25 games of actual playing, right? This week, games 25 through 27. And it's mediocre. There's just no other way to put it. It is average. It is average basketball that we're seeing. So what do you think?
That actually might be generous at various points because I got all excited the other day. I promised that I would get off the roller coaster, and I got all excited about them beating the Celtics. I'm not a Lakers fan, by the way, for the record. But I started to think, maybe this is the team we thought that they could be. Maybe they're rounding into form at both ends. Russell Westbrook has been playing better lately. They've been defending better lately. Maybe the team against the Celtics, albeit, the Celtics aren't world beaters, and we're missing Jaylen Brown. Maybe they're starting to find themselves a little bit, and then they go and lose to the Ja Morant-less, although very competitive lately, Memphis Grizzlies. I think they'll end up somewhere between the finals favorite that they were and this mediocre version that we're seeing now. I don't think that this is who they are, and I don't think they'll be worse before it's all said and done, barring injury, if that makes sense.
So we're seeing the floor.
I think this is the floor, and maybe I'm being naive, but I do think this is the floor because even within the 20-something game sample size we now have, and you're right, it's still not Christmas, unofficial start of the season, I think you have to parse that and say, well, how many games were they missing LeBron? How many games have they missed, or all of them, they've been missing some key players, So I wouldn't necessarily make any grand proclamations about them right now. Trevor Ariza, so I was trying to remember. Trevor Ariza, Kendrick Nunn, whatever.
That's about it, yeah. I mean,
their rotation hasn't been complete. And not to mention, it should be a work in progress integrating a Russell Westbrook into a team that has two players already through whom the offense should run in LeBron James and Anthony Davis. So work in progress to begin with, but when you don't all have all your tools at your disposal, a longer work in progress. Right now, if I'm a Lakers fan, I'm just going to sit back and look forward to and enjoy winning time. Because that trailer was fire. Yeah. Nostalgic in the meantime.
No, I know that's the problem is, none of those guys are going to be walking through that door, but they do have an all-time great in LeBron James, who did seem to chafe a bit last night when talking about all the different rotations that Vogel's going through, just, in search of the right one, that they're, that he's playing with a bunch of guys that he's trying to figure things out because there's no set rotation. There's no real set five in a way outside of the four, OGs in a way. And right now the Lakers are putting themselves in position for another play-in game. If that happens for a second straight year, that would be wild. What do you think about the Blazers? Do you think Damian Lillard is going to wind up elsewhere by next year? Something? What do you think?
I don't believe so. There are two stories this week that came up for various reasons that I feel like you should strongly consider retiring. One is the when will Tom Brady retire story.
Okay.
Two is when will Damian Lillard actually ask out? Now, that doesn't mean that it can't get so bad until he and whoever is the full-time general manager and Jody Allen can't come to some kind of agreement about what's best for him and the organization mutually. But even though it kind of felt like he was headed in that direction in the offseason with some of the things he said after the Nuggets loss, I don't think Damian Lillard, and we just got to accept this, Damian Lillard is not that dude that's going to say, man, you know what, this ain't going to work here. Y'all got to trade me to a contender. I'm going ring chasing. He's never been that dude. He's not that dude. And everybody else holding their breath thinking he's going to be that dude. This guy is 10 toes down professionally and personally in Portland, for a variety of reasons, a lot of them off the court. That's his home, and that's where he wants to be, no matter how much we've come so far in the rings culture that not only are we okay with guys forming super teams or chasing rings with contenders, But now when somebody doesn't do it, we look at them sideways like, yo, what's wrong with you, man? Get with the program. You're supposed to be trying to get with the Lakers or the Nets or a former super team somewhere. What's taking you so long? I don't think he's going to do that. To me, it really comes down to and you and I have had this conversation a lot. We've all had this conversation quite a bit, fellas, is does Daryl Morey blink? Because I think if I'm going to start shaking it up in Portland, I know he's going through a lot right now. He's got a baby on the way. He's got a collapsed lung. I think it starts with C.J. McCollum. I think they're too redundant and have been for a while in the backcourt. I think it starts with, can Portland put together a deal that gets Ben Simmons to Portland and improves that defense? And if and when Damian Lillard decides and the organization collectively decides that he needs to move on somewhere else, whether it's we don't want to extend you or it's run its course and you want to go for a fresh start against his reputation, then at least you have Ben Simmons to build around. Does that make sense?
Sure does. Sixers are 14-12, so I don't know if that's desperate enough. But they're certainly not at the top of the pack like they were last year.
How would you solve it in Portland? Where would you start?
I don't know, man. No, I know the way my guy Chris Brockman would just tell Lillard you're out, and send him like that he is easily the best chip that you can cash in for multiple picks to try and just restart. I just don't see that.
Some take a look at the bad guy type thing. Like, okay, I'll do the uncomfortable thing, and I'm going to trade you, Damian Lillard.
Pretty much, but I think that's a non-starter in that town. They have a different fan base than most over in Portland. And that I think they want Lillard. I think Lillard wants them, and they're just going to try and figure it out. I don't know how you do, because it is a very difficult puzzle. Certainly with a new coach there and Billups, and it's just not working. It's terrible. And McCollum, it might be the piece that you trade if you can, and I hate to refer to him as such, or the player that you trade. But he's hurt. I don't know. You got to play through it. Let Lillard come back Sunday, as the report is, and see if that gets better. Can he just carry the team by himself?
Well, he hasn't been playing well.
Well, he's been hurt.
Not bury that. He's been hurt and not playing well. So it's not as though, this is the Dame Lillard we left in the playoffs last year.
Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.